Who is better, the San Francisco 49ers or the Minnesota Vikings? In this video, I will compare each roster at every position and determine who is better. Which team is more talented, the Vikings or the 49ers? This is not a prediction on who I believe is going to win, but it is an analysis on who is the more talented team, the Vikings or the 49ers. Before I give you my answer, Gronk spike the like button, subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL videos just like this, and comment below your opinion. Who is the more talented roster going into the divisional round, the 49ers or the Vikings? Let's kick off this comparison starting at the quarterback position. It's Kirk Cousins of the Vikings versus Jimmy Garoppolo of the 49ers. These two guys are very comparable. I think they both share similar skill sets. They're both pocket passers with a tiny bit of mobility to move within the pocket and extend plays, but aren't the type of athlete that we will see in the Texans-Chiefs game or, of course, with Lamar Jackson. They are more prototypical pocket passers. They're both very accurate. They're both decisive. I like Kirk Cousins slightly more in this matchup because he has the experience, but not only the experience, but he has the chip on his shoulder that is absolutely massive from people over the years saying, you know what, buddy? You can't win the big game. You suck in prime time. You can't do it. Well, you know what? Kirk Cousins went out there versus the Saints and he said, you like that? And he went out there and won a game in New Orleans versus Drew Brees in overtime. Kirk Cousins showed his critics, and he's going to continue to do that going into this game. Not only that, but Cousins had the better numbers this season over a guy like Jimmy G. 3,603 yards, 26 touchdowns to only 6 picks, and a 107.4 rating. Versus the Saints, he had his best game potentially ever in a clutch moment with 242 yards and a touchdown. Cousins can make those big-time throws, and when Cousins is on, he is deadly accurate. Jimmy Garoppolo, I love. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big Jimmy G guy. He had a very efficient season, and the thing I will say about Jimmy G, as the season has gone on, he's gotten better and better and better. Of course, he was coming off the ACL injury, so it was going to take him some time to get over that, and he has. And he's gained more confidence in his teammates, chemistry with his wide receivers, and of course, just overall more game experience as a starting quarterback in the NFL, and that's growing, and that's awesome to see. But I'm not going against a guy that wants to prove the entire world wrong in Kirk Cousins. At the running back position, I am also siding with the Minnesota Vikings. And the main reason is, I think both teams have great depth. I love the trio that the 49ers have in Coleman, Breida, and Mostert. Mostert being the main ball carrier as of late with 772 yards and 8 touchdowns. All three of the guys have over 500 yards rushing, and 2 of them have over a 5 yards per carry. But Dalvin Cook is the best back in this game. And when Dalvin Cook has played for the Vikings, he's been a true MVP candidate type of player. When he is on the field for Minnesota, they're a drastically better team and a drastically better offense. Everything operates through him. 1,100 yards rushing, 13 touchdowns, a 4.5 yards per carry. Madison and Boone back him up as nice complementary weapons, and we've seen that a guy like Madison can come in and be effective as well. So overall, I'm going to give the slight advantage to the Vikings, even though I love the 49ers backs and their explosive ability as well. At the wide receiver and tight end positions, I am giving the third category to the Minnesota Vikings. It sounds crazy, but hear me out. The Minnesota Vikings have the better receivers. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Thielen, Diggs, they complement each other perfectly well. Thielen, more of the slot guy. Both are crafty receivers. Diggs, more of the downfield threat. He has executed well through this play-action scheme. 63 catches, 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns. Thielen in limited action also had 6 touchdowns, and you saw how awesome he was versus New Orleans. Then you throw in Rudolph and Irv Smith, who I think are really nice weapons as well. And when you pair them up, maybe they're not as valuable as a George Kittle, but they do give a lot of flexibility to this Vikings offense. Rudolph clutch versus the Saints. 6 touchdowns on the season, 39 catches. Irv Smith, 36 catches, 300 yards as well. Now for the 49ers, I'm still going with the Vikings, but I think you have to say they've been very good. Whether that's adding Emmanuel Sanders at the trade deadline, who's come in and really adapted very well, gained chemistry with Garoppolo fast, 500 yards, 3 touchdowns in 10 games. Samuel, 57 catches, 802 yards, and 3 touchdowns, who contributed right away as a rookie. And then you have George Kittle, who's the best tight end in all of football. There's no doubt about it. Not only for what he can do catching the football as a receiver and then extending plays with his yards after catch, but also as a blocker, where he's the best in the game right now in that area. I still have to go with the Vikings because I love the duo they have at wide receiver. You have to double team both of them almost. You have to find a way to take them both away because it's almost impossible to cover both of these guys with just one corner. And then you throw in the 2 tight ends that they have on the offense, and I think it's one of the best skill positions in the entire league. At the offensive line, I am siding with the 49ers. Now, this is a close call because the 49ers, they did lose Richburg, their center, this season. That kind of took them down a little bit, took them down a peg. But overall, when you look at it, I still trust Staley and McGlinchey at tackle. I like Tomlinson and Person at guard. The numbers are pretty dead even. I mean, adjusted sack rate, San Francisco's 15th, Minnesota's 14th. Adjusted line yards, San Francisco's 8th, Minnesota's 7th. Almost exactly the same. The continuity is a little bit stronger with Minnesota, given that they haven't had as many injuries, and they have all their starting guys from the beginning of the season. Whether that's O'Neal, Bradbury, who's a high drafted rookie. These guys have been solid, but I think the difference here is that the 49ers are better when they're asked to pass protect in difficult situations. When the 49ers are in 3rd and 10 plus situations, they can buy a little bit more time with their pure pass protection than the Vikings. The Vikings rely a lot on their scheme to allow time for Kirk Cousins. A lot of it is based off the rushing attack, where they're great in run blocking. But when they're asked to do drop back pass game type of stuff, their offensive line is not as effective or as efficient. So I am going with the 49ers slightly because of their better ability to pass protect. On the defense, the interior defensive line, the big boys in the middle. This is another interesting category. I think personally it has to go with the 49ers. They both play different type of schemes. While the Vikings play more of an attacking 4-3 traditional style, the 49ers play more of a wide 9. The 49ers actually line up a lot of their interior players at different spots. In particular, Armstead both plays interior and as an edge defender, but Buckner is a dominant force in the inside, ranking 13th by PFF, 7.5 sacks, 14 hits. Armstead is in the top 5 for PFF, 10 sacks, 18 QB hits. And you also throw in Sheldon Day as well as a nice complementary piece. For the Vikings, you have Joseph, 35th ranked by PFF, 3 sacks, 44 tackles. Johnson has 3.5 sacks on the season as well. When it comes to adjusted line yards, the surprising part here is that Minnesota actually ranks near the bottom of the league for their push versus the run game. Only 25th. San Francisco ranks 13th, a lot better in that category. But the surprising part on top of that is that Minnesota's run defense overall is actually slightly better, 9th compared to 11th. The 49ers, they have a dynamic rushing ability from the interior, whether that's Buckner or Armstead. Their ability to have 18-ish sacks combined between the both of them, 17.5 to be exact, is pretty impressive. And you don't see that very often from a duo in the interior of a defensive line. The edge rusher position going into this game, in my opinion, is the strongest of all positions we will see come Saturday when these two teams play. For both teams, they're absolutely stocked up with great edge defenders. Let's start off with the Vikings. Odenigbo is one of the more underrated edge rushers in the league, ranking 24th by PFF, 7 sacks, 13 QB hits. Everson Griffin, 25th, 8 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, 24 hits. and Danielle Hunter, who is one of the best edge rushers in the entire NFL and has the capability of dominating games. 14.5 sacks, 15 tackles for loss, 22 quarterback hits. And then you throw in another guy like Weatherly, who's not a bad backup, 3 sacks, 9 hits on the quarterback. You then counteract that with what the 49ers have. Nick Bosa, D. Ford, Solomon Thomas. You throw in a little bit of Eric Armstead in there, who plays outside and inside. Bosa's been the defensive rookie of the year. 25 hits, ranking 12th overall by PFF. Ford took this defense from being good to great when he was on the field with 6.5 sacks in his limited action. This is a very difficult call. Because I said Eric Armstead is an interior player for that category, I am actually going to say that the Vikings get the advantage in this category. I know it sounds a little wild here, but when you dominate a Saints offensive line in their building, the way that the Vikings defensive line did, I have to give you the utmost props. Everson Griffin, he showed a little versatility in that game, playing inside and getting after it, kind of like in a vintage Justin Tuck sort of way. Danielle Hunter is amazing off the edge. They have the depth there. I'm going with the Vikings. It might be a little bold to do so. It's super close. But yeah, I'm going with Minnesota here. Now to the linebacking play. The linebackers for the Vikings are awesome. They have the best ranked PFF linebacker all season in Eric Kendricks, leading the team in 12 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, 110 tackles. Kendricks has been one of the game's best backers, and he's really upped his game in terms of coverage. He was one of the best cover backers this season, taking on running backs with regularity. He has great instincts in the run and the screen game. Anthony Barr is a freak of nature who, when he's on his game, he's a dynamic player, but when he's off, he's a liability. 79 tackles, 7 quarterback hits, 6 tackles for loss. Eric Wilson, a really underrated player as well. I mean, Eric Wilson ranked 23rd by PFF, 3 sacks, 57 tackles. You flip it to the 49ers, and I would have said clearly that the Vikings were better at this position until we heard that Kwon Alexander was coming back into the lineup for the 49ers. And that actually made me flip my decision. I'm going with the 49ers here because I really like Fred Warner and Kwon Alexander as a duo. Fred Warner, ranked 25th by PFF this year, had 118 tackles, 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles, 9 pass deflections, and a pick. And Kwon Alexander, when he's on the field, he makes this unit that much faster, quicker, and that much better in coverage. Then you add Greenlaw into the mix, who ranks 33rd at the position by PFF, 87 tackles on the season. I think the 49ers linebacking trio is extremely underrated, and a huge part they had such success early in the season. So I am going to give a little bit of an advantage to the 49ers because Kwon Alexander has returned to the lineup. In the secondary, both rank in the top 8 for pass defensive DVOA. Minnesota ranking 7th and San Francisco ranking 2nd. If we're just looking at the safety play, I would give the edge to Minnesota. But as an overall secondary, including the corners, I'm giving it to San Francisco. When taking a look at just those safeties, Harrison Smith and Harris have been one of the best duos in football, if not the best. According to PFF, they were the best safety duo. With 9 total interceptions, Harrison Smith ranking 3rd overall for PFF this year, 85 tackles, 11 passes defensed, and then you have Harris with another 11 passes defensed, those 6 picks, and really coming a long way as a guy that just has incredible ball skills. These two are an awesome safety duo, both in run support and also in coverage. Sendejo also plays a little bit in the box as that 3rd safety, ranking 24th by PFF this season. But when it comes to the corner play, San Francisco really is much better than the Vikings. Richard Sherman ranked 1st by PFF this season at the corner position with 3 interceptions on the year. Mosley, Witherspoon, Kawan Williams, who ranked 8th by PFF this year. These guys all have something in common. They're all very, very long and tall and physical corners who have great ball skills. All of them make plays on the ball. All of them will beat up receivers, and all of them are excellent tacklers. And they're very good within this scheme. So San Francisco has the clear advantage at corner because, let's be honest, the roads have been open for Xavier Rhodes. Not closed, roads have been open. He ranked 116th this year by PFF. Trey Waynes has been better. He's been okay. But really, that has been a true weakness for this defense for Minnesota, has been the corner play. San Francisco, they've been solid everywhere in their secondary, including safety, where Ward has been super underrated, ranking 6th by PFF, 8 passes defense. Tart has been great in the box and also covering some tight ends on occasion. I like the 49ers as a complete secondary unit, but I will say that the Vikings have incredible safety play. The Minnesota Vikings also have the advantage in the third phase of the game, on special teams. Dan Bailey has kind of had a resurgence this season kicking the football for the Vikings. He has been 27 for 29 on field goals. That's 93%. And punting-wise, they have a top 5 punter in Colquitt. Their starting position is also better than San Francisco's, ranking 5th offensively and 14th defensively. I like the special teams of the Vikings. I don't think either team has extraordinary returners, so that really won't be a big facet of the game. But when it comes to consistent kicking and punting and field position, I do think Minnesota will win that facet of the game, and I do think they're the more talented team in that area. And the last category is, of course, the head coach. Zimmer versus Shanahan. And this is an awesome matchup because we're talking about one of the best defensive minds versus arguably the best offensive mind in football today. And I know that Zimmer just had a massive victory over Sean Payton, and maybe I'm slighting him a little bit here, but I'm a massive Kyle Shanahan guy, and I would say that Kyle Shanahan, over the course of this entire season, has been the better coach than Zimmer game by game, week by week, and I'm not going to let one game influence me for this decision. Plus, Kyle Shanahan has had more of the upper hand over Zimmer throughout the course of their career. Twice gaining the most yards that Zimmer gave up in a season and the most first downs that he gave up in a single season. So that being said, Kyle Shanahan is out for revenge. Super Bowl 51. People blame him for that loss to Tom Brady and the Patriots. I think he comes out with a massive performance versus the Vikings offensively. I will give the 49ers the advantage at coach. That means that the tally actually ends up being a tie, which I did not believe would happen before I made this video. 5-5. That means that in a tie, I will give the slight win to the San Francisco 49ers as the more talented team because they do have the home field advantage. That is how close these two teams are. These are two of the most talented rosters in the entire NFL. There's no doubt about it. And we will see who comes out on top. Let me know in the comment section below who you guys think is more talented, the 49ers or the Vikings. Did I get it right? They're a tie? Or was I wrong? Let me know. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching, and peace.